The hospital lights were too bright for a night like this. Ayan rushed through the emergency doors, his arms wrapped tightly around his wife's limp body. Zara's head fell against his chest, her hair damp with sweat, her lips pale as if the color had been drained from her life. His voice echoed through the corridor, panicked, desperate, convincing. "Please help her. She just collapsed." Nurses ran toward him. A stretcher appeared. Doctors began asking questions. Ayan answered everyone perfectly, too perfectly. They wheeled Zara away, and Ayan stood there, breathing hard, hands trembling. Anyone watching would have seen a worried husband on the edge of breaking down. No one saw the relief hiding behind his fear. Just an hour earlier, Zara had been laughing softly in their bedroom, talking about a future Ayan had already decided she would never see. She trusted him. She always had. That trust was the cruelest part. Ayan sank into a chair outside the ICU, covering his face with his hands. A nurse placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, "We're doing everything we can." He nodded, as if the words mattered. Then his phone vibrated. Aisha, Zara's younger sister. He didn't answer immediately. He stood, walked toward the end of the hallway, and picked up the call. "Is it done?" Aisha whispered. Ayan closed his eyes. "She's inside," he said quietly. "Just like we planned." Aisha let out a shaky breath, half fear, half excitement. "Good. Everything will change after tonight." Ayan knew why Aisha was so involved. She had always watched him differently. While Zara loved him for who he was, Aisha loved him for what he had: money, status, power. And somewhere along the way, love turned into obsession. Zara had noticed it too. "She looks at you like you're already hers," Zara once said softly, not accusing, just hurt. Ayan remembered brushing it off, pretending not to see what was right in front of him. Now, that truth stood between life and death. A doctor stepped out of the ICU, pulling Ayan back to the present. "We need some time," he said. "Her condition is critical." Ayan nodded again, his face falling into perfect grief. Inside, his heart beat fast, not with fear, but anticipation. Because if Zara didn't survive the night, everything would belong to him. And Aisha would finally get what she wanted. As Ayan sat back down, staring at the closed ICU doors, he didn't notice the woman standing at the far end of the corridor, watching him closely. She had seen his phone call, and she knew this wasn't an accident. Who was the silent witness watching Ayan that night, and would she expose the truth before Zara's heart stopped beating? Ayan spent the rest of the night sitting outside the ICU, counting seconds like they were coins slipping through his fingers. Every time the doors opened, his chest tightened, not out of love, but fear. Fear that Zara might survive. Fear that all his careful planning would collapse. Just before dawn, Aisha arrived. She walked into the hospital wearing worry like a costume, her eyes red, her hands shaking. Anyone watching would think she was a devastated sister. Only Ayan knew the truth behind that trembling. "She's still alive?" Aisha asked quietly, sitting beside him. "For now," Ayan replied, not looking at her. Aisha clenched her fists. "She was never strong," she whispered. "She won't last long." Ayan finally turned toward her. "You need to be careful," he said sharply. "People can hear." Aisha nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. There was no grief there, only impatience. From the very beginning, Aisha had wanted what wasn't hers. Growing up, Zara had always been the gentle one, the responsible one. Parents trusted her. Teachers praised her. And when Ayan entered their lives, rich, confident, admired by everyone, Zara became the chosen one again. That was the moment something inside Aisha broke. "She doesn't even understand you," Aisha once told him late at night, her voice soft, dangerous. "You deserve someone who matches your ambition." Ayan should have stopped it then. Instead, he listened. Zara, lying unconscious behind those ICU doors, had no idea that her own sister had slowly poisoned her marriage, not with medicine, but with whispers. A doctor approached them again. "We're trying a new treatment," he said. "The next few hours are critical." Aisha's face fell. "So, there's hope." The word hope felt like an insult. Ayan forced himself to sigh. I just want her pain to end, he said loudly enough for others to hear. But Aisha leaned closer and whispered, and what about us? Ayan froze. For months, you promised me a life, she continued. You said once Zara was gone, we wouldn't have to hide. Ayan's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected pressure this soon. This isn't the place, he murmured. Aisha stood up suddenly, tears spilling over. You think I did all this for nothing, she said, her voice cracking just enough to sound real. I risked everything for you. Nurses looked over. Ayan stood quickly, holding her shoulders, playing the comforting brother-in-law. Inside, panic began to rise. Because Aisha was no longer just a secret. She was a threat. And if Zara woke up, everything would fall apart. What secret did Zara discover before she collapsed, and would she wake up in time to reveal the betrayal that started inside her own family? Zara's mind drifted in and out of darkness, like waves crashing against a distant shore. Voices echoed around her, muffled, unfamiliar, but one voice stood out. Ayan's. She wanted to open her eyes, to tell him she was still there, still fighting. But her body refused to listen. Inside the silence, memories began to surface. Earlier that evening, Zara had stood outside the study, her hand resting on the door handle. She hadn't meant to listen. She hadn't meant to doubt her husband or her sister. But then she heard her name. She trusts you too much, Aisha had said softly. And that's the problem, Ayan replied. Zara's heart had skipped a beat. What if she finds out? Aisha asked. She won't, Ayan said. And even if she does, she's too weak to do anything about it. Those words had cut deeper than any wound. Zara had backed away slowly, her chest tight, her world shattering piece by piece. The man she loved. The sister she protected. Standing together against her, she had gone to the kitchen, hands shaking, trying to breathe, trying to understand how love could turn so cruel. She remembered reaching for water, then nothing. Now, in the hospital bed, her fingers twitched slightly. A monitor beeped. A nurse noticed first. Doctor, she called out. There's movement. In the waiting area, Ayan felt his phone vibrate again. Unknown number. He answered, irritated. Hello. I saw you, a woman's voice said calmly. In the hallway. On the phone. Ayan's blood ran cold. Who is this? Someone who knows your wife didn't just collapse. Before he could respond, the call ended. Ayan stood up abruptly, scanning the corridor. People moved normally, patients, nurses, families, but suddenly, everyone felt dangerous. Meanwhile, inside the ICU, Zara's eyelids fluttered. Pain surged through her body, but one thought burned brighter than the rest. They did this. Tears rolled down the sides of her face as she struggled against the darkness. She didn't know how much time she had left, but she knew one thing. She couldn't die without telling the truth. The doctor leaned over her. Zara, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. With every ounce of strength she had left, Zara's fingers closed weakly around his. In the hallway, Ayan felt something he hadn't expected since the plan began. Fear. Rehook, end of part 3. Zara is waking up, but will she be able to speak before Ayan and Aisha realize the truth is slipping out of their control? Zara's eyes slowly opened, taking in the harsh white of the ICU lights. Her vision was blurry, but she could make out the familiar shapes of machines, monitors, and the faint outline of Ayan standing a few steps away. Her heart raced, not with relief, but with a sudden clarity. She remembered everything. Every whispered plan. Every secret glance, every betrayal. The realization hit her like ice. The people she trusted most, her husband and her own sister, had conspired against her. Ayan noticed her movement immediately. Zara. His voice was soft, almost trembling, but she could see the calculated fear in his eyes, the fear of being exposed. Don't worry, everything is okay, he said, stepping closer, his hands open in a gesture of comfort. But Zara didn't need comforting. She needed answers, and she needed action. Slowly, she sat up, ignoring the nurse's gentle protests. Where's Aisha? She asked, her voice weak but determined. Ayan's eyes flickered, a shadow of panic crossing his face. She went home. Rest now, you need it, he said quickly, masking the truth. Zara's gaze sharpened. I heard everything. That night in the study, every word, she whispered. Her strength was returning with every heartbeat. You planned this. Both of you. Ion froze, realizing the mask of grief he had worn so perfectly was beginning to crack. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The nurse watched nervously from the corner, unsure whether to intervene. Ion finally composed himself, placing a hand lightly on Zara's arm. You're imagining things, he said smoothly. You're weak from the collapse. You need rest. But Zara shook her head. No, Ion. I'm seeing clearly now. And I know what you and my sister were trying to do. I won't let this go, she said, her voice gaining strength. I survived this night, and I'll survive you both. Ion's joy tightened. For the first time, he realized the danger of underestimating her. All the planning, all the manipulation, could unravel in a moment if she chose to act. As he stepped back, pretending to calm her, the faint sound of footsteps echoed outside the ICU. Someone was watching. Zara's eyes followed the movement. Could it be a nurse, or someone else entirely? The thought that someone might have seen Ion's call, or even his panic, gave her a strange sense of hope. For the first time since the collapse, Zara smiled faintly, not of relief, but of determination. Zara has awakened and knows the truth, but will she expose the conspiracy before Ion and Aisha strike again? The ICU felt quieter now, but Zara's mind raced. Every detail from the night of her collapse was clear. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every calculated move by Ion and Aisha. She forced herself to sit upright on the hospital bed, ignoring the lingering pain in her ribs. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the call button, but then she paused. She needed control, not panic. She needed to act smart. Outside the ICU, Ion waited, pacing nervously. He glanced at his phone again, hoping for news from Aisha. He had been confident before, but now a strange unease gnawed at him. Zara had woken. She had seen. And if she spoke, everything would collapse. Aisha's call came just as he was turning away from the monitor. Is she awake? She whispered, excitement laced with anxiety. Yes, he said quietly. But she seems stronger than I expected. Be careful. Meanwhile, Zara's mind was already racing through options. She couldn't leave the hospital, not yet. She needed evidence. She needed to understand how far the betrayal went. But first, she had to survive the next few hours without alerting Ion. The nurse returned, checking her vitals. How are you feeling? She asked kindly. Better, but I need to rest, Zara said softly, masking the storm inside. She noticed the nurse's badge and smiled faintly. Maybe someone here can help, she thought. Ion watched from the doorway, his mask of grief firmly in place, yet his eyes darted constantly. He had underestimated her resilience. He had planned everything perfectly, but one miscalculation, Zara's determination, threatened to undo it all. Later, when the corridor was quiet, Ion pulled out his phone again. He typed a short message. She's awake. Stay alert. Do not let anyone know. He sent it to Aisha, who immediately replied with a single word, understood. But Zara was not unaware. From the corner of her eye, she had glimpsed the glow of his phone. She knew someone else must have seen the message, someone outside their conspiracy. Her heart raced, not just with fear, but with clarity. This was her chance. If she played her cards carefully, she could turn the table. She could survive and expose both of them. Ion returned to her side, a calm smile plastered on his face. You're going to be okay, Zara, he said smoothly. She stared at him, unblinking. Inside, she was already planning her next move. You think you have control, but you don't, she thought. Zara has survived the night and is stronger than ever, but who else is secretly watching Ion's plan unfold, and will they help her expose the betrayal? The hospital corridor was quiet now, almost eerily so. Every step Zara took on her trembling legs felt like a victory. She could sense Ion outside, waiting for any sign of weakness. But she wasn't weak. She was awake, aware, and determined. Zara noticed something odd. A shadow lingered near the end of the hall, just outside the nurse's station. Someone was watching, but they hadn't revealed themselves. Her gut told her this person wasn't there to help Ayan. Carefully, she moved her gaze, making it seem like she was still weak and vulnerable. The shadow didn't move. Whoever it was, they were observing, waiting for the right moment. Inside the ICU, Ayan's phone buzzed again. Another message from Aisha. Everything is still on track. Don't let her suspect anything. He scrolled quickly and replied, keep ready. She's regaining strength faster than expected. Zara noticed the light from his phone reflecting in the glass partition. She realized someone must have seen the messages, a silent witness outside their conspiracy. Her hope surged. The thought of help filled her with renewed determination. She couldn't confront Ayan directly, not yet. But if this hidden observer was willing to act, she might finally have a chance to expose the betrayal. Meanwhile, Ayan was unaware that Zara had already pieced together part of his plan. She knew about the call he had made to Aisha that night, and she remembered every suspicious glance, every whispered word. He thought he had buried the truth, but she had seen too much. Her chest tightened as she imagined confronting them both. If she acted too soon, they would destroy her. If she waited, she might lose the opportunity. Timing was everything. Suddenly, the shadow moved. A woman stepped into the light, her face partially visible. Zara squinted. She didn't recognize her, but there was no doubt about the intention behind the gaze. The woman seemed ready to act, ready to intervene. Zara whispered softly to herself, barely audible. Finally, someone who can see the truth. Ayan, completely unaware, turned back to the ICU, confident that he still controlled everything. He didn't notice the subtle shift outside, the presence of someone who could ruin all his careful planning. As the silent observer stepped closer, Zara felt a spark of hope. Maybe she wasn't alone. Maybe Justice had an ally she didn't even know she had. Zara has a hidden ally, but who is this mysterious observer, and will they risk everything to help her expose the deadly conspiracy? By the early morning, the hospital had quieted. Only the steady hum of machines and the occasional footsteps of nurses filled the corridor. Zara's strength had returned more than anyone expected. Every glance, every movement, reminded her that the battle wasn't over, it was only beginning. The mysterious observer had approached her quietly. A woman mid-30s, wearing a nurse's uniform, leaned close. You're awake, she whispered, her voice urgent but calm. I saw everything. I know what they did. Zara's eyes widened. You saw. The woman nodded. Ayan's phone, the messages, the way he carried you into the hospital, it wasn't an accident. I've been watching, waiting for a chance to help. Relief and fear collided in Zara's chest. Finally, someone she could trust, but every second counted. Meanwhile, Ayan was unaware that his perfect plan was slipping through his fingers. He stood just outside the ICU, trying to compose himself, unaware of the new player in this game. He checked his phone, expecting another reassuring message from Aisha. None came. Instead, there was a new notification, an unknown number. He opened it. She's awake. And someone is helping her. Ayan froze. His palms became clammy. He had underestimated Zara, and now there was someone else in the hospital, observing every move. Back inside, the mysterious woman whispered instructions to Zara. Listen carefully. You need to appear weak, but in the meantime, gather proof. Make him underestimate you, exactly as he has done with everyone else. Zara nodded. Every fiber of her body screamed for revenge, but she also knew patience was crucial. A wrong move could cost her life. Hours passed. Ayan paced outside, agitated, pretending to other staff that he was calm. The slightest movement from the unknown woman caused him to glance nervously at the hallway, suspicion creeping into his eyes. Zara's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She realized she had an advantage now. Not only had she survived, but she also had a witness, someone ready to act with her. The tension thickened. Every step outside the ICU, every beep of the monitors, felt like a countdown. The confrontation was inevitable. And when it came, everything would change. Zara has an ally inside the hospital, but can she outsmart Ayan and Aisha before their deadly plan takes its final step? Ayan had always believed he was untouchable. Wealth, influence, and careful planning had made him feel invincible. But the night had changed everything. He paced the hallway outside the ICU, phone in hand, pretending to be concerned for Zara. Every so often, he glanced toward the room, checking her monitor, ensuring she appeared weak and vulnerable. But his confidence was faltering. He didn't know about the mysterious woman who had positioned herself inside the ICU, carefully observing his every move. She had seen his phone messages, noticed the subtle cues of his lies, and now she was ready to act. Ayan's first mistake came when he assumed Zara was too weak to notice small details. He leaned too close to the bed, adjusting her blanket, pretending to comfort her. "You're safe now, love," he whispered. But Zara's eyes were sharp. She caught the slight tension in his jaw, the tremble in his hands, the carefully controlled panic. Her mind raced. He thinks he's in control, but he isn't. Not anymore. Meanwhile, Aisha was waiting outside, unaware of the new witness inside. Her phone buzzed constantly with updates from Ayan, each one a reassurance that their plan was unfolding. But she didn't realize that Zara had survived and that someone inside the hospital was ready to intervene. Zara's ally leaned closer. "He's nervous," the woman whispered. "He thinks you're still weak, but he can't see how awake you are. Use it. We can expose them both." Zara nodded subtly. Every muscle in her body was tense with anticipation. She could feel the power shifting. For the first time, fear and determination collided into focus. Ayan, unaware, took out his phone again and texted Aisha, "She's waking faster than expected. Be ready." The woman inside the ICU caught sight of the screen and took a mental note. Everything Ayan thought was hidden, she now knew. Every lie, every plan, every manipulation. Zara's pulse quickened. The moment of reckoning was near. She had survived, she had an ally, and Ayan had made his first mistake, underestimating her strength and awareness. Zara has spotted Ayan's first mistake, but will it be enough to turn the tables before he and Aisha tighten their grip on her life? Zara lay back on the hospital bed, pretending weakness, but her mind was sharper than ever. Every detail from that night, the whispered words, the secret calls, the cold calculation in Ayan's eyes, was burned into her memory. She knew she couldn't confront them head-on yet. Patience was her weapon now. Her ally, the mysterious woman, handed her a small notepad and a pen. "Start writing," she whispered. "Every detail you remember, every conversation, every plan, every text. This will be your proof." Zara nodded, her hands shaking with a mix of fear and adrenaline. She scribbled down what she could recall, the call to Aisha, the whispered instructions, the lies he had told the nurses. Each word on the page was a step closer to justice. Outside, Ayan and Aisha were growing impatient. "Is she stable?" Aisha demanded over the phone. "She's awake, but calm," Ayan replied cautiously, trying to mask his growing worry. "Keep waiting. Don't act until I say so." But Ayan underestimated Zara's intelligence. She wasn't just awake, she was alert, observing, and planning. Every gesture of concern he displayed only fueled her resolve. Hours passed, and the hospital corridor remained mostly empty. Nurses came and went, oblivious to the storm brewing inside the ICU. Zara's ally kept a watchful eye on Ayan's movements, noting every detail, every lie, every slip. Zara's fingers hovered over the page, the pen trembling. She wrote down Aisha's obsession, Ayan's manipulation, and how the two had conspired against her. Each word was a declaration of intent. She would survive, and she would expose them both. Her mind also considered strategy. Confrontation wasn't an option yet, not until she had undeniable proof. She had to bait them, lure them into revealing more. She had to control the narrative, so that when the time came, there would be no escape for either of them. Ayan checked his phone again, unaware that Zara's ally was capturing everything in the background. His overconfidence was his weakness. Each move he made was being documented without his knowledge. Zara's eyes, once filled with confusion and fear, now burned with determination. The night had revealed betrayal, but it had also awakened her strength. She was no longer a victim, she was a strategist, biding her time for the perfect moment. Zara is ready to fight back, but will Ayan and Aisha realize that the tables are about to turn against them before it's too late? By late afternoon, Zara's resolve had hardened. She had documented every detail of the conspiracy, the calls, the whispered plans, the subtle manipulations. Her ally had gathered proof of Ayan's deceit, and now they were ready to turn the first move against him. Ayan, growing impatient, paced outside the ICU. He hadn't expected Zara to recover this quickly. Every time he glanced at the monitor, he could sense the subtle changes in her expression, eyes sharper, body slightly more upright. His confidence began to falter. Aisha called him again. "Is she awake yet?" she asked nervously. "Yes," Ayan replied, forcing calm into his voice. "She's weak, still recovering. We just need to wait a little longer." But Zara had overheard everything. Using her weak eyes, she whispered faintly, ensuring only her ally could hear, "They're impatient. They're slipping." Her ally nodded, understanding immediately. The first trap was ready. Zara's plan was simple: make Ayan believe she was still fragile while baiting him into revealing more of his intentions. Ayan approached the bed, a fake smile on his face. "How are you feeling, love?" he asked, his voice coated in false concern. I'm okay," Zara whispered softly, just enough to appear weak. "But I feel dizzy." Ayan leaned closer, crouching beside her. "Don't worry," he said, voice gentle. "I'm here. I'll take care of you." Inside, Zara's heart raced. Perfect, just as I planned. Her ally quietly opened her phone and started recording. Every word, every gesture, every manipulation Ayan displayed was captured. The first trap was set. They had proof, and soon Ayan and Aisha would reveal more than they intended. Minutes passed, tension thick in the air. Ayan, unaware of the recording, continued to coax and cajole, his arrogance blinding him. He believed he was untouchable, that Zara was still the fragile wife he could control. But inside the ICU, the balance of power had shifted. Zara was no longer defenseless. She had survived the night, gained an ally, and now had evidence of the betrayal against her. The first trap had been sprung, and there was no turning back. The first trap is set, but will Ayan realize too late that Zara is no longer the woman he thought she was? The hospital corridor was silent again, but the tension inside the ICU was palpable. Zara lay on her bed, pretending weakness, but her mind was alive with strategy. Every subtle move of Ayan, every glance, every word was being analyzed. She wasn't just surviving, she was plotting. Her ally moved silently beside her, ready to act at the perfect moment. The recordings from earlier were just the beginning. They had captured Ayan's manipulation and deceit, but Zara needed him to make one more critical mistake, to reveal the depth of Aisha's obsession. Outside, Ayan was growing restless. He hadn't anticipated Zara's quick recovery. He paced, his phone buzzing with messages from Aisha. Each message was a reminder that their plan had limits. He couldn't force her to appear weaker than she was. Inside, Zara whispered softly, "He's nervous. He's slipping." Her ally nodded. "Good. Keep him talking. Let him show everything." Minutes turned into tense hours. Ayan finally approached the bed, crouching beside her. "I know it's hard, love," he said, voice smooth, but Zara could sense the tremor beneath. "But everything I do is for you." Zara's eyes narrowed. "For me?" "No, for her, for money, for control." "I understand," she whispered faintly, keeping her tone soft. "I just don't feel safe." Ayan's eyes widened slightly. "Safe," he echoed, leaning closer, trying to coax a response. Zara's ally quietly hit record again. Every gesture, every word of Ayan was being documented. The web was tightening. Ayan believed he was in control, but in reality, he was walking directly into Zara's plan. Then, the final test came. Zara whispered a question, designed to lure him into revealing Aisha's obsession. "Does my sister know everything?" Ayan's mask faltered. She's been helpful, he said quickly, voice betraying a hint of panic. She only wants what's best for you. Zara's lips curved into a faint smile. Too late. You've already shown everything. The power in the room had shifted completely. Zara was no longer a victim. She had survived, she had proof, and now, the men and women who plotted against her had unwittingly exposed their own treachery. Zara has drawn them into her trap, but will Aisha and Ayan realize the web closing in on them before it's too late? The tension in the hospital had reached its breaking point. Zara lay in the ICU bed, her strength fully returned now, though she still kept up the appearance of vulnerability. Her ally had been silently collecting every piece of evidence, the recordings, the phone messages, the subtle admissions of guilt from Ayan. Ayan and Aisha were growing more desperate. They hadn't expected Zara to recover so quickly, nor had they accounted for someone inside the hospital observing their every move. Panic had begun to replace their confidence. Zara's eyes flicked toward the door. This was the moment. She whispered to her ally, "It's time." Together, they called the hospital security and a trusted friend outside who had legal authority to act. Within minutes, Ayan and Aisha found themselves confronted, not by Zara directly, but by the undeniable evidence of their conspiracy. Recordings, messages, and eyewitness testimony left no room for lies. Ayan tried to speak, to manipulate, to plead, but his words fell flat. Aisha's obsession, her role in the betrayal, was now fully exposed. Their carefully plotted plan had collapsed under the weight of truth. Zara, sitting upright now, felt a strange mixture of relief and empowerment. She had survived the night, she had uncovered the betrayal, and she had reclaimed her life. She looked at Ayan, then at Aisha, and for the first time, she spoke with authority and calm. "You thought you could control me. You thought you could destroy me and my family. But the truth always finds a way to the surface. And now, justice will follow." The authorities escorted Ayan and Aisha out, their arrogance replaced with fear and regret. The hospital staff, who had unknowingly witnessed pieces of the plan, now realized the depth of deception that had taken place. Zara finally took a deep breath, letting the tension leave her body. She was bruised, physically and emotionally, but stronger than ever. She had faced betrayal, manipulation, and near death, and yet, she had emerged victorious. Her ally stood beside her, smiling faintly. "You did it," she said. Zara nodded. "We did it," she replied, realizing that survival was only the first step. Now she would rebuild, stronger, wiser, and more vigilant than ever before. The hospital corridor was quiet once more, but the story of betrayal, survival, and justice had left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Zara survived, exposed the conspiracy, and reclaimed her life. But the question remains, who else in her world might be hiding secrets waiting to be revealed next?